We are live for another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 108. I think it is. We'll be breaking down the card. Full disclosure, I have not been able to tape a lot of these fights, so a lot of these are kind of like a first look situation. And then once I do the tape, I'll put out my shorts and it'll be a little bit more complete. And of course, if you're in the House of Stims Discord, you'll get all my notes, my breakdowns, and my bets for any bets I do make. And you can reach out to me and I can always give you the notes if there's something that I didn't post or if you have any questions. So make sure you're checking out House of Stims. Link is in the description of this video. And if you can't join for some reason, just hit me up and we'll get you set up. What's up, Jammer? Good to see you in here. So as always, we'll do a quick recap of last week, and then we'll jump right into this card. And there's a few spots I'm really excited to talk about. So last week, we did pull a profit. It was very tight, but I'll take it. 0.9 units profit. We lost on Whitaker, money line, -145, and I still haven't gotten to rewatch that fight. I was at my friend's wedding. We were sitting in church, actually, so I did not get to watch that fight. I heard that it was pretty close. I heard that it was pretty competitive, but ultimately Whitaker lost, so it is what it is. Bryce Mitchell hit that for -125 for 2 units. That was nice. I thought he did pretty well. I mean, he got hurt in the first round. That was rough, and he did kind of cling for his life, but he got him down and said he couldn't get back up. So I think he won the fight pretty clearly, got the job done, 29-28, and I'll take it. I think it was a decent enough bet. We did lose on Mitchell, round 3 TKO, had a quarter unit there at +5,000, never really looked close. My best play probably in a while, honestly, was Davy Grant at +295. Felt pretty good about my read, went for almost a full unit, 0.9 units, and then I put 0.1 on the round 3 finish for Davy Grant, just because my whole angle for betting him there was I feel like Blackshear is going to struggle flying all the way there to Abu Dhabi when I know that Davy Grant was actually there early. Blackshear had to fly there. I knew that Blackshear struggles to make weight as it is because he's a big dude for bantamweight. And I knew that Blackshear, as it is, like, remember the Cody Gibson fight? He said it was like his stomach or whatever. And I was like, if that bothered him and caused, a rough performance, what's it going to look like if he has to fly all the way to Abu Dhabi? Like, are we sure he should be -300 or more? So I took the shot on Davy Grant. That came through. Was happy with that bet. Even the round 3 that lost, I think that was a solid play. Davey, I think he was a little nervous to really put his pedal to the metal in the 3rd round because he didn't want to get taken down. And, I don't blame him. And then I had a parlay with Almabayev Ochoa fight goes. That cashed nice and easy. But then I also had Carlos Leal on that parlay, and he got knocked out. So that lost, and that stunk. And then we had Krylov sub round 1, sub round 2. Obviously, he got knocked out, so those lost as well. And ultimately, we ended up 0.91 units, and I'll take it. A winning night's a winning night, and we can jump into this card. Hopefully we can do even better this week, but I'm happy to be in the green. Okay, there we go. Scroll down. All right. Oh, I'm so small. All right, there we go. What's up, BTB? Where's the YouTube love? What are we at? Oh, my God. We got 255 of you on Twitter. We got 10 of you on YouTube. Hop on over. Helps me a lot when you come onto the YouTube. Leave a like, comment. And if you're on Twitter, at least like it or retweet it or leave a comment or all 3. Really helpful. All right. So for the first fight of the night, we have Austin Bashi versus John Yannis. Bashi 13-1-0, 23, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. Yannis 9-3-0. He's 31. And he's 5'8". We don't have his reach. So they're the same height. I know nothing about John Yannis. I didn't know about this fight until literally 15 minutes ago. So I was able to squeeze in 2 minutes of watching his last fight with Nick Aguirre and tried to get an idea. But obviously, I can't give you a perfect read because I haven't taped it. I didn't know this fight was happening. I just got home recently. And yeah, they found out about it. But I mean, I know enough about Austin Bashi to talk about him. He's a really good grappler. He's a guy who's coming from a grappling background. And we know that if you can pressure him and if you can outstrike him and keep it on the feet, he'll struggle. We saw that in his last fight against Zhu Rong. I don't know enough about John Yannis. I don't know enough about his takedown defense. I watched literally the first 2 minutes of the Nick Aguirre fight and saw him get taken down and have his back taken. And I have to assume that if Aguirre was able to do it, Bashi will probably be able to do it. But again, I have not taped this fight at all. It just got announced. I just found out about it 15 minutes ago. I'll pick Bashi. but not an official pick or anything. And I probably won't be playing anything if he's minus 500, which he is. What's up, Drinking No Things? I like the name. What's up, Mike? Cheers. What's up to you as well? And you know what? You reminded me. Cheers. Steven's picks. Listen to Steven. He's a wise guy. Thank you, Steven. Good to see you in here. Do my best. I do my best. Sometimes I'm a little tired, but try to keep it up. All right. Next up, we have Piera Rodriguez versus Ketlen Souza. Piera Rodriguez, 10-2-0, 32 years old, 5'3" with a 63.5-inch reach. Souza, 15-5-0. She's 29. She's going to be 3 years younger. She's going to be the same height, and she will have just about the same reach. So I've never been super high on Piera, like ever, and I'm always trying to fade her. And I think it's time for me to kind of come around a little bit. It's not that I think she's going to be a champ or anything. I don't think she's the greatest fighter of all time, but she's a lot more competent, a lot more skilled than I've given her credit. On the feet, she's nothing special, but her grappling is pretty good. She is a good wrestler. She's got good control, solid ground and pound, and a decent enough submission grappling game. And you just have to hope that she doesn't start headbutting her opponents for unclear reasons. That was really strange in the Cornolle fight. And then with Ketlen Souza, I've never been high on her either. I think I played her by sub against Marnik Man. And then what other fights does she have? I know I played Angie Hill against her, and that was a close fight. I didn't do anything here, I don't think. I had the sub for Souza against Man. And I don't think I did anything against Uragi. I think I stayed away there. And then, like I said, I did bet Hill. But Souza, she's a good striker. I think she's the better striker. I think she has more tools here. She's got a decent enough kicks to the body. She's got solid kicking game in general. She's got some knees she'll mix in from time to time. And the striking solid. She definitely hits harder out of the two of them. I think on the feet, she's the one at an advantage. Piera's pretty damn hittable too. So if Ketlen can keep this on the feet, I can definitely see her outstriking Piera. Even if Piera's, matching her on the output, I think Ketlen's going to be the one landing the bigger shots. I think she's going to be the one more likely for a finish, although I don't really think there's going to be a finish. And ultimately, yeah, it's kind of binary because of that for me. If Ketlen can keep this on the feet, I think she's going to win. If Piera can get it down to the mat, I think she's going to win. Like I said in the beginning of the show, I haven't been able to tape a lot of these fights in depth. I've been able to look at most of them at least a little bit, but some of them I haven't been able to tape a lot. Getting married in less than 2 weeks, and there's a lot to do, so just don't have a ton of time. But so I want to look at this one a bit more. I want to look into Ketlen Souza's takedown defense a bit more. I don't have any plays yet. I do lean dog or pass, but I got to look into it more and decide if the number's worth it, because I do lean towards Piera getting it done with the grappling. I think she is a good grappler, despite my earlier opinions on her. And like I said, I want to give credit where credit's due. So we'll go Piera Rodriguez decision for now, subject to change. Next up, we got Felipe Bunes versus Rafael Estevam. Bunes, 14-7-0. He's going to be 35 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Estevam on the other side, 13-0, undefeated. He's 28, so he's going to be 7 years younger. Going to be 1 inch taller, and he's going to have the same reach. This is relatively straightforward for me. I mean, I don't want to bet Estevam at chalk. I know he's undefeated, but I feel like he's a little bit gassy. It's not necessarily because he has bad cardio. I just think that he doesn't have the best pacing. He goes really hard early and then starts to wean off at the end because he ran out of gas. And that'll happen. That'll happen. So it's not necessarily that he has bad cardio. He has bad cardio management, I would say. So that's why I wouldn't play him at chalk. But Bunes isn't exactly a cardio monster himself. You don't look at Bunes and you're like, wow, that guy has great cardio. He doesn't. He's a solid enough fighter. He's a pretty good grappler. He's a decent striker. He had competitive moments against Josh Vann on the feet and was able to take him down there. And he's talented in the jiu-jitsu. He's very slick. The armbar that he got over Jose Johnson, that was nice. Jose Johnson, say what you want about him. He's not an easy guy to submit. He has worked on his grappling a lot. I know that. I've spoken to him. Have an interview on my channel. It's very old at this point, but if you want to check it out, you should check it out. So it was impressive to me the way he submitted him. That was really, really slick. I'm struggling to see the path for him here because Estevam's no stud striker in his own right. Like, he's not a great striker at all. He's a decent striker, but he's nothing special. And I can see Bunes maybe compete, like, not maybe. I can definitely see Bunes competing with him on the feet. I think that Estevam, out of the two of them, he does hit harder. I do think he carries a little bit more power, but he also just doesn't throw a lot on the feet. So even though Bunes isn't an amazing striker, I will give him the striking advantage just by a little bit. But his takedown defense isn't great. And I think Estevam should have an easy enough time taking him down. I think Estevam can probably submit him if he really tried, at least early, because like I said, he does start to kind of wane in the cardio department as the fight goes on. I don't really see a knockout here. I'm thinking it's either Estevam sub or decision, and I kind of lean towards the decision unless Bunes really gasses too. But oftentimes at the fight like this, it's kind of like heavyweights where if they don't get the finish in the first 1.5 rounds, they probably won't get the finish. And I feel that way about this fight too. So I'll pick Estevam and I'll lean towards a decision. No confident take. Duo saying Estevam KO, probably live through ground and pound. You know what? You're not wrong at all. Honestly, as I'm thinking about it, let's see. What's Estevam KO? Plus 300. I don't know if I love the number, but yeah, positional TKO is definitely live. I just don't know if I want to bet a plus 300 on specifically a positional TKO, Let's see. More than sub. Yeah, I agree. Oh, thank you, Benino. Appreciate that. Over 2.5 here could be a look. Let's see. Minus 160. See, I wouldn't really want to do it just because they're both kind of liable to falling apart if they start to gas. And again, like I said, I don't think that a finish will happen later in the fight once they're tired, but you never know. So I'd be careful there, especially laying the chalk. For some reason, I thought it was like pick'em or something that I would have had interest in, but at this number, I'd rather not get involved. What's up, Andres? Andres? What's the correct way to say it? You're going to have to correct me there, but I'm late. How y'all doing? Better late than never. And I'm usually late too, so that's okay. And I'm doing good. How are you, brother? Bunes gassed really quick on a full camp. I'll say this about that fight. It's important to notice it at least. He did gas against Van. He did. But Van also rips to the body, like relentlessly. How many body shots did Van land on him? Let's check. Okay, not as many as I thought, but 15 body shots from Joshua Van with the pressure. I think that probably had a lot to do with him gassing. And Estevam's not exactly a guy who's going to start ripping to the body. But, in the inverse to that, maybe Estevam can tire him out even more through the grappling. That's a possibility too. So I don't hate your look at all. You know what I'm starting to think as we're talking about it? This is why I love doing live streams and I love talking to you guys, because I think of things that I didn't think about before. How about Estevam late KOs? Like 2-3. Okay. Bet online numbers are plus 800 for 2, plus 1200 for 3. Domestics might give us a better line. That could be something. That I don't hate at all. Prize not there in my opinion, but 2-3. Yeah, I'm thinking 2-3 might be a move, honestly. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Duo. All right, moving on. We got Rodolfo Vieira versus Tresean Gore. Vieira, 10-3-0, 35 years old. He's 6 feet tall with a 73-inch reach. Gore on the other side, he's going to be 5-3-0, 31. He's 6 feet tall, and he's going to have a 75-inch reach. So he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. I don't know how much I want to get involved in this fight. I feel like these guys have been, a little back and forth. Like the Petrosky fight for Vieira was an awful, 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 awful look. The Petrosian fight was a really good look. But again, that was like a year and a half ago now. The Brundage fight, whatever, also honestly wasn't the greatest look at first. And Chris Curtis. The Chris Curtis fight was interesting because Vieira, he tried. He tried real hard. He shot like 20 takedown attempts in that fight, and he didn't really gas. He kept doing it. He kept trying. He was boxing with him. So that was relatively impressive. So I feel like he's sometimes a little bit inconsistent, mostly because that Petrosky fight was just really, really rough. But I forgot where I was going with that. But overall, like he has been doing relatively well. We all know what his deal is. He's a tremendous, tremendous grappler. His wrestling is decent enough, but his jiu-jitsu is top notch. And his striking is okay. Like he's a serviceable boxer, but he's very hittable. And it's not like he's super dynamic, creating angles, angling off of strikes, throwing a lot of nice kicks. That's not really his game. He'll set up the takedowns with the boxing, and then he'll kind of shoot. Tresean Gore, also, pretty inconsistent and not the best performances, but Tulio, like I can put that by. I think Tulio is very special, and most of us expected it to go that way. The Trocoli fight, good for him. Trocoli, I'm not even quite sure why he ever was in the UFC. Josh Fremd, no longer with the promotion. And then he had that loss to Brundage. He had that loss to Brian Battle. But Brian Battle, we all know how he's doing now. Tresean Gore, he's not super active. I don't love that. And he's still so green. And at this point, he's been in the UFC, what? It's got to be 2 or 3 years. I don't remember when his Ultimate Fighter season ended, but it's just weird that he still has so few fights. I mean, look at Brian Battle. He also didn't have a lot of fights after the Ultimate Fighter, and then he came out there and just now he's what, like, I want to say he's like 11 or 12 wins for Brian Battle. Yeah, 12-2-0. But stylistically, again, kind of binary, right? Can Vieira get the takedowns? If so, he's probably going to win this fight. He could probably submit, not probably. I'm pretty confident that he can submit Tresean Gore if he gets it to the ground. I am pretty confident that he can get it to the ground. I'm pretty confident that if he does get it to the ground, he'll be able to keep it there because Vieira does have good control because of the jiu-jitsu. We tend to see that, right? Wrestlers might not have the greatest control sometimes, but jiu-jitsu guys, they might not have the best wrestling to get it there. But once they get you down, it can be very, very difficult to get back up. So if you have somebody who has both, it's tough to deal with. On the feet, though, like, I got to give the edge to Gore. Gore definitely hits harder. He's a solid striker in his own right. And again, Vieira's put together a solid boxing arsenal, or a solid boxing game, rather. But there's not a ton to it. I think Gore has more weapons standing. I think Gore has more firepower standing. So if he can keep it on the feet, I tend to think it's going to go his way, but I just struggle to see him really keeping it on the feet for a prolonged period of time. I think Vieira's going to get it to the ground, and I think Vieira's probably going to get it done inside the distance, but I likely won't have a play. It's a fight that I want to look into a bit more, but I highly doubt it, because even though I do think Vieira finishes him, do I want to lay chalk on him when I don't necessarily trust him right now? No. And I'm not really in the business of betting Gore unless I really think there's value there, and I'm not quite sure that there is here. So I'm going to go Vieira sub. We'll go round 2. Next up, we got Rinya Nakamura versus Nathan Fletcher. Nakamura 9-1-0. He's 30 years old, 5'7" with a 68.5-inch reach. Fletcher 9-2-0. He's 27, so he's 3 years younger, which is strange. I actually thought Nakamura was a lot younger than he turns out that he is. 5'7" as well, though, and he's going to have just about a 2-inch reach advantage. So Nakamura is a big favorite again, not as much as he was over Muin Gafarov. Like a dummy, I did have him parlayed against Muin Gafarov, and that came around to bite me. That sucked. And it really just came down to, like, poor game planning. He wasn't shooting when he should shoot, and his striking was just not anywhere near good enough. And it was just a mess. And when he did eventually get a takedown, he looked great on the ground. He clearly had the advantage on the ground. He clearly had, a path there, but he just didn't follow that path. He was striking way too much, and his striking's not good. He's hittable. He when he does throw the shots, he's straight down the pipe, but it's not put together. He can't put together a competent 15 minutes in a fight on the feet. Like, you put him in a kickboxing match against a competent striker, and I think he's going to struggle a lot. So he needs to grapple. With Nathan Fletcher on the other side, you have a guy who honestly is a grappler, but can still be out-grappled, right? Colin Loughran took him down how many times? I think it was 5 or something. Conor Ofley out-grappled him in their Ultimate Fighter matchup. So he's a guy who can grapple, but he's not the most physical. His takedown defense isn't the greatest. His counter-grappling isn't the greatest. He's a decent enough striker. He puts together some nice combinations. He's got some decent work on the feet. He mixes it up relatively well. I would say that he is the better striker in this matchup. But as my good friend Dogfather would say, Nakamura's got the hardware. Nakamura definitely has the wrestling advantage. I do think that Nakamura can take down Fletcher if he goes for it. And, I'm not high on Muin Gafarov, but something that I'll give him is that he does have power. He does carry power. He does hit hard. And I can't say the same about Nathan Fletcher. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to scare off Rinya Nakamura on the feet here. And I'm not exactly sure what's going to stop him from getting takedowns. So I don't know what the angle necessarily is for a Nathan Fletcher win. But something that I could be interested in is maybe like a fight goes or the overs, but I know they're really chalky. I know it's like, over 2.5. Now it's minus 210. Even more money's come in. Fight goes is minus 180. So I don't really want to lay the chalk there. Maybe Rinya does finally go to the ground game and actually get a sub. But Fletcher's not an easy guy to submit. He's just also a guy who could kind of break a little bit later in fights, kind of fall apart a little bit. So I could see maybe Nakamura taking advantage of that because I do think he has solid cardio. But ultimately, I'll go Nakamura. I'll go Nakamura decision. Even that is chalky, minus 140. So you probably won't see any plays from me in this fight, but that's the way I'm leaning towards. Let's see. Oh, I do like that drinking no things. Vieira Gore under 2.5. I'm honestly even a little surprised that it's there. What is it? Fight under, but is that an actual line? Because I know it's on fight odds, but the fight ends ITD is minus 215, so that doesn't make a ton of sense. I'm gonna assume that they opened it at minus 110 for the 2.5, and then they closed it and reopened it. And of course, you'll always have some people tracking that despite it not being true. Yeah, they changed it. It's over 1.5 is minus 145. Under 1.5 is plus 115. Like, because under 2.5 minus 110, that's a really good play. But that's not a real line, unfortunately. Ironically, this is you're not wrong. But like Fletcher is probably still a better striker, I would argue at least. Yeah, but is Fletcher going to submit him off his back? Like, Nakamura is nice on the ground. He's really slick on the ground, which just makes even less sense why he didn't wrestle more against Moon. Fletcher at dog money seems okay. Yeah, but you guys know me. When I play a dog, I like to be able to game it out in my head. Like, I'll sit and I'll think, like, okay, what does it look like when they win? For example, for Davy Grant, I knew what it would look like, right? Stuff the takedown, survive the first round, pressure, pressure, pressure. I'm not quite sure what it looks like for Fletcher. It would have to be probably Rinya completely choking again, and Fletcher just outstriking him over three rounds. But is that really going to happen? I lean towards no. So for me, it's Nakamura here, and we can move on. All right, next up, we have one of my favorite active fighters. I love Nick Klein. We have Nick Klein versus Andrey Pulayev. Nick Klein, 6'2" 29 years old. 6'1" at the 77-inch reach. Pulayev 9'3" 27. He's 2 years younger, 3 inches taller, and he's going to have a 1.5-inch reach advantage. So, excuse me. So I love Nick Klein. I just think he's a boss. I love guys like that who have that dog in them. They're just going to bring it, and if they die, they die. But they hope that their opponent will be the first one to die. And I just love that mindset. I love a guy like Nick Klein. I love the way he conducted himself in that Dana White's Contender Series fight. He was the underdog. He came out there, got the submission super quickly, started screaming at Dana. I love that stuff. And then he comes in there against Mansour and just goes to war with the guy. Says, screw being careful, screw trying to grapple him, and just starts striking with the dude. Hurts him. I believe it was a spinning elbow or something that hurt him. And almost got a finish. I'm pretty sure I took a sprinkle on Klein in some fashion in that fight. And yeah, he's just fun. He's fun. He's explosive. Is he the most skilled? Absolutely not. He's not great of a striker. He's very hittable. His wrestling is pretty good. I would say that his grappling is pretty good. It's not like elite jiu-jitsu, but he's solid. He can get it done. He uses it to win fights. He can win minutes with it as well on the ground. But he does also struggle with cardio a little bit. We've seen it in the past. Hasn't been tested recently, but he has been able to gas out in prior fights. Dokaj was the one that I'm talking about. And then with Pulayev, you have a guy who people were really low on going into his Dana White's Contender Series fight. I believe at the time me and Dogfather were doing our Contender Series show, I think we were both on him there. And it was a good hit. It felt good. You know, he's a guy who you look at his old tape and you're kind of like, this dude stinks. And then you see the more recent stuff and you realize his age. He's only 27 and he's getting better and better. He looks impressive. He's got good body work. He's solid in the clinch. He's a good striker at range. He can wrestle a little bit. He can defend takedowns well. So I have to lean towards the Pulayev side. I just think he's a bit more put together as a mixed martial artist. But I also don't want to really lay the chalk on Pulayev, even though it's not crazy chalk. You know, it's not something absurd. He's not minus 200 or minus 300. He's minus 150. And I know some very sharp people on him. I know some very sharp people who are happy with these prices. And it makes sense to me. It's just for me personally, maybe it's a bias towards Nick Klein, but I don't really want to fade him with a guy who I don't consider top or like towards the rankings at chalk, when I think that Klein could pull an upset. I think Klein could maybe get an early finish. I think he could catch him with something. And I think he could give Pulayev some issues in the grappling, because in the past, that was something Pulayev struggled with. Again, since then, he's improved significantly. He's gotten a lot better in the grappling. So I lean towards Pulayev being fine and being able to survive anything Nick Klein throws his way in the grappling department. But overall, I do have to lean towards the Pulayev side, just because he is the more skilled fighter, I would say. He's also the bigger fighter. He's the younger fighter. And I just think that he's more likely to have some major improvements going into this fight than Nick Klein is. I'm rooting for Nick Klein. I'm going to pick Pulayev because for the reasons I've said. But unless I end up with a bet on Pulayev, I will be rooting for Nick Klein because I really like the guy. I think he's a lot of fun. Let's see. Duo, this is back to the Pulayev fight. Duo is saying very similar fight to his Contender Series. Which one are you talking about, Pulayev or Nick Klein? I'm assuming you're talking about Pulayev because he was fighting, what was his name? Liam Anderson, who is a grappler, primarily a grappler, and he was able to handle that pretty well. I think he got taken down, once or twice? Once, yeah. But other than that, he was able to stuff most of it. So I do think he's going to be okay here. But I also think that Nick Klein is more dangerous than somebody like Liam Anderson. Line is fair at best for Pulayev. With all uncertainty, you'd have to be really reaching for those grapes to bet Pulayev at this price. I mean, I can see an argument to make that, I can see an argument for Pulayev 65, 70%. I can see that. Just because he is the more skilled guy, and there's not much to say that he's not durable, that he can't, take a big shot from Klein, and there's not much to say that Klein's necessarily going to easily submit him either. I've seen Pulayev take big shots. I've seen him eat it. He survived against Leroy Duncan in their last fight, where he was a tremendous underdog. The overs were solid money, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I do lean Pulayev's way, and I think we can move right along. Oh, we're up to the main card already. It's a short card, only 12 fights. It was 11 until they added the Bashi fight right before I got home. But, make sure you guys are listening to Drone Rookie. What's up, Drone Rookie? Everybody leave a like for Mike. Would be much appreciated. All right, next up we have Danny Silva versus Kevin Vallejos. Danny, he's 10-1-0. He's going to be 28 years old, 5'11", with a 70-inch reach. Vallejos, 15-1-0. He's 23, which is just insane considering how talented and skilled he already is. Like, it's actually absurd. He's 5 years younger. He's going to be 4 inches shorter, and he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. So I can't really get behind the price for Vallejos. As good as I think he is, I still need some more answers. Him knocking out the chinny fella, Sung-Woo Choi, like, that doesn't tell me a ton. I think a lot of people expected that outcome. I didn't bet it, but I was thinking that's probably what happens. I just think that, the difference between somebody like Sung-Woo Choi and Danny Silva is that Sung-Woo Choi, as talented as he is, because he is a talented fighter, he's not a bum, he's very chinny. And Danny Silva's not chinny. Danny Silva's very durable. The problem that I have with Danny Silva is that he's extremely hittable. You watch that fight with Pacheco, and they're just going, punch for punch, punch for punch. They landed, over 100-something significant strikes each in that fight. Let me double check. It was a very, very high output affair. And while it's a very fun match, while it makes for a very fun fight, and it shows me that Danny Silva can throw high volume, which I love out of fighters that I back. I like to back guys who will throw a lot, will bring pressure, will bring the pace. And that's what Danny Silva does. He has good cardio. He throws a ton of volume in almost every single fight, and he's always pushing a pace. The problem I have is the defense. I know that his defense numbers on UFC stats show 61%, but I have all the respect for Pacheco. Another guy I interviewed, another guy who I think is a really cool dude, who's a solid fighter and a fighter's fighter. He will bring everything. He doesn't care if he's getting the crap beaten out of him. He'll keep coming forward, and he won't quit on himself. He wants to be there. He wants to be a fighter. He wants to be in the UFC. So, I don't blame Danny Silva for, it being kind of competitive on the feet, but I do blame him for the defense in that fight. He just took way too many shots. And I think that's a pretty that's normal for his fights. He's taking a lot of damage. I don't know how he got that 61% striking defense, but he's taking a lot of shots. And I think if he comes into this fight and starts fighting Kevin like he fought Pacheco, I think he's going to struggle. Even if he fights him like against Luis Almeida, again, not the best striking defense in that fight, was a lot more competitive than a lot of people thought. And I just think that on the feet, while Danny Silva's a solid striker, even outside of the fact that I love his volume, he's a good striker. He puts it together well. He'll dig to the body, makes his targets nicely. He's got a good arsenal on the feet, but I just think Kevin is leagues ahead on the feet. I think Kevin is super, super impressive. I think his striking defense is actually good. He does a good job covering it up, does a solid job maintaining range. He does have kind of a short reach, so he can struggle against guys who are going to keep their distance. But I don't really see Danny Silva as a guy who does that. You don't really see him popping the jab, maybe throwing a teep to keep them at bay. He's kind of the guy who's like, well, let's just brawl. And I think in this particular matchup, that's probably not the best game plan. Now, a possible path for Silva would maybe be the grappling, maybe wrestle him. We did see him do it against Culibao. Culibao was able to stuff a lot of it, but Danny Silva ultimately got the takedowns. I don't even honestly, I feel like that fight could have gone in Culibao's favor, the decision. But Danny Silva, what you can take from that, which is a good thing, is he adjusted. Normally he's a striker. He doesn't really grapple often, at least on his regional tape. You watch him, he's not really grappling. But he saw against Culibao, he was kind of struggling with the movement of Culibao. Culibao's kind of difficult to deal with at times. And he's like, screw it, let me wrestle him. And that got the job done for him. Now, can he take down Kevin? I am not sure. Kevin, his takedown defense hasn't been tested a ton. He got taken down by Gene Silva in their fight on the Contender Series, which is just insane that we got to see them fight on the Contender Series. But I tend to think that his takedown defense will be good enough against a guy who's not a primary grappler. Once he fights a really good wrestler, throw him in there with Mofsar, then we're going to have a completely different conversation. But against someone like Danny Silva, who can mix takedowns into his game, but doesn't have the greatest wrestling, I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. So I think that Kevin's going to keep it on the feet. I think Kevin can knock out Danny Silva. I know Silva's really, really durable. I know he can 100% take a punch, but I also don't know that he's taken some shots like Kevin Vallejos will give him. And because of his defense, I tend to think that he might get finished. But if not, I lean towards Kevin being able to get the decision. I think he's just very, very special. I know they're both young. They're both improving. And I have a strong feeling that Danny Silva is not going anywhere. He's going to be in the UFC for a long time. At 28 years old, he's already really good. He's likely going to end up in the rankings, and he's probably going to stay there for a while. But I think Kevin is somebody who can do that, but then also challenge for a title at some point. And he's only 23 years old. Now, with the 23-year-old territory comes bad fight IQ. That's something I've noticed throughout my time betting. That's why sometimes with young guys or young women, I don't really like to bet on them because they make a lot of mistakes. They do. It comes with the youth. Remember yourself when you were that young. When I was 23, I was an idiot. Now, I'm only 27, and I'm still an idiot, but maybe a little bit less than I used to be. So long story short, I'll take Vallejos. I don't see value on the money line, though. And I think you can make a valid argument for a Danny Silva play. Here's my best take at it. He's durable. He'll have the grappling upside if he's able to get it down. Throws very high volume. Maybe Kevin, sometimes he's not a super high volume guy. And if Kevin doesn't get him out of there early, maybe Danny Silva makes this close. And at plus, what is he now, Danny? He's plus 380, I think. 330, like that. Sometimes that's a risk that you can take if you have that read. So I don't hate the dog shots on Silva. I just don't think it's a play that I'm going to get to. But again, this is a fight that I need to look into more. Most of these fights I have not taped extensively. Less than 2 weeks away from my wedding. Things have been very crazy. So I haven't gotten to tape a lot at all, being completely honest with you guys. But that's where I'm at right now. We'll go Vallejos, and I'll lean towards the decision, but I have a feeling he might get that knockout because of just the striking defense of Danny. I really don't like it. What's Vallejos' decision? Plus 230. Not bad. Let's see. Anything else interesting here? Not really. All right. We can move on. Actually, before we do, let me catch up with the chat. Because I see, oh, we already talked about that. Still appreciate you, Drone Rookie. What's up, Aussie Fight fan? Good to see you in here. If Rodolfo Vieira loses, betting BJJ is dead and submission wrestling is king. Yeah, I mean, look at Buchecha last week. Thank God I stayed away. Because you guys know me. I just don't like Martin Budai. And it's probably because I got robbed against him with Breshki. That's probably why. But I also just hate clinch merchants. But I got to give him credit. he got the job done. But I was so close to betting Buchecha. It was either a parlay or I would do like a sub prop. And obviously neither hit. So I dodged a bullet there. Overs are good monies. Vallejos doesn't necessarily bonk him. Yeah, I'm thinking that way too. It's just like I said, it's the defense of Silva that worries me a little bit. Oh, yeah. Yo, Daz, holy moly, dude. That was probably the craziest thing I've ever seen in MMA Twitter, period. Like, we see a lot of crazy things happening, all kinds of drama, but then Daz just pulls up, has no worries in the world. He's like, yeah, my finger got bitten off by a dog, but it is what it is. May we all have that kind of mentality when bad things happen, Daz. That was very dope. But I hope your finger's okay. Danny Silva split plus 1,800 is an amusing bet. Yeah, don't hate it. I don't tend to bet those, but don't hate that. Finger's a bit tiring, but healing away. Just a nuisance. Did they put it back, or is it just, the finger's gone now and it's just like healing? Love fight goes plus 115 Silva Vallejos. Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't know if I love it because, again, while I think Silva's really durable, I worry that his striking defense is going to be too bad, but we'll see. All right. Let's see. Silva takes a round off Vallejos. Does he get in on some of that Gene Silva aura? I don't know about that. But I would be hyped to see Vallejos fight Gene Silva, but not yet. I need Vallejos to be like 26. Like, give the guy 3 years, then give him Gene Silva, and I'm pretty confident he might beat Gene Silva, but we'll see. We'll see. Next up, we have Neil Magny versus Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Neil Magny, he's going to be 29, 13, and 0. He's 37 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. On the other side, Zaleski, 25, 9, and 1. He's going to be 38 years old, so he's 1 year older. We got not a lot. We have a lot of younger guys on this card. These are the two older ones. He's 5'11", so he's going to be 4 inches shorter than Magny, and he's going to be giving up 7 inches in reach. This one's interesting. I haven't taped this one, not a lot. I looked into it a little bit. Just watched the last couple of their last fights, but I need to, sit down and think. With Magny, he hasn't been looking great, but granted, would Zaleski look great against Carlos Prates? I'm not quite sure. Would Zaleski look great against Michael Morales? I'm pretty confident that the answer is no. And I'm not confident that Zaleski would beat Mallet either. I think Zaleski, while he's had good performances lately, like the Renat Fakhretdinov fight was a very good performance, despite the outcome being, a draw. But then he got knocked out by Randy Brown. I don't think Neil Magny's knocking him out. He had the Scroggin fight, which was just kind of a layup. And then he had the Chidi fight, where I kind of stayed away there, but I had Zaleski sub, which didn't really come quite close. And then Chidi just put him away, which was a really good performance by Chidi. I don't have a ton of interest in betting this fight. I really don't. I know that older guys are doing well, but what do you do when both guys are older? Past 37, 38 years old. Then what happens? Is it going to be a draw? I mean, stylistically, how they match up, we all know. We all know who these guys are. Neil Magny, he's an okay striker, but he's certainly not somebody known for his striking. He's certainly not somebody knocking people out on the feet. He can put together decent enough combos at range, but for the most part, Magny's a guy who will grab you, clinch you, and just throw knees and hold you there because he's relatively strong. He's good in the clinch. He's long and lanky, and those knees can come up pretty high. And he's a pretty good wrestler in his own right. He can get takedowns. He's got decent enough control, but we haven't really seen him use the wrestling all that much lately. Now, granted, that could be the level of competition. He also did have that Ian Gary fight where Ian Gary just beat the daylights out of him and then just couldn't get the finish. But look at this lineup of his last few fights. Prates, Morales, Mallet, Magny. He's finally getting a step down here, at least a little bit, and deservedly so. Let the man have a peaceful retirement. But yeah, so on the feet, I think ZDS definitely has the advantage, right? He's definitely the slicker striker, the more put together striker, has a lot more tools and weapons on the feet. He's got phenomenal kicks. His hands are good too. He's got decent enough power, definitely more power than Magny. If someone was to get a knockout, I'm pretty confident that it would be ZDS. The question is, can he A, keep the fight on the feet? And, you know, in general, he normally does have good takedown defense. He was able to stuff a lot of the takedowns from Renat Fakhretdinov in their fight. And he's for a lot of his career, he's had good takedown defense. But as you get older, the reaction speed starts to go. And a lot of takedown defense is reaction speed. You know, it's also knowing what to do, fighting the hands, throwing in underhooks. You got to have good hips. But you need reaction speed to do a lot of those things. Yeah, you need reaction speed to quickly grab the hands. You have to have reaction speed to quickly throw in the underhooks, to quickly sprawl. And I think that's going to start to go. I lean towards Magny not getting a lot of takedowns. I lean towards the way I kind of see it playing out is Zaleski's landing big shots. He's landing good shots. He's doing good work on the feet. But before he can really get his combinations going and he starts to flow, Magny clinches, thrusts him against the cage, starts to land some clinch shots, knees, maybe a couple punches, short punches. That's kind of how I see it going. So then it really comes down to how much is Magny able to clinch him? How much damage could Zaleski inflict? It's a tough fight for me to call. It's one that I definitely need to look at more. I will lean towards a Zaleski decision, but I think at this line, the value's probably on a Magny play or a Magny decision play. What's the number there? So fight goes minus 150, which I don't hate. Magny decision plus 225. Maybe the domestics will give us something a little bit better once it's out. I'm not quite sure if it's out yet for that fight. But yeah, I'm going to go Zaleski here for now. Tentative pick could change. And I do think it's dog or pass. But again, I got to look into it more. And currently we have 670 of you guys watching live, 643 on Twitter. Please, for the love of God, if you're listening to me, you're either really bored and just decided to put up with me so you have something to listen to, or you like my stuff. And if you like my stuff, it would be great if you could like, comment, retweet on Twitter, but even just a like will help. And then on YouTube, if you can hop over to YouTube, if you really like me, leaving a comment, subscribing, liking the video, that all really helps. YouTube is all algorithm, and any little thing you guys do that really helps me out. Any interaction, whether it's hating or liking me. If you don't like me, let me know. Tell me why. Tell me what I'm wrong about. All right, let's see what we got in the chat, and we're gonna move on. They abolted the fingernail area, then took a bit from the palm and joined it to a line on the side of the finger. No way. I didn't even know that was possible. So you kind of have your finger back. Modern medicine, guys. Modern medicine. Okay. I'm going to do my very best to say your name, but you're going to have to correct me. But I do appreciate you being here from Philippines and in the morning. But I do want to try to say your name. Okay. Asera Pagalanan. Mochikospatikos. Let me know how close I got on a scale of 1 to 10. Aussie, Aussie, are you also struggling with the finger? I went and bet Magny. He probably going to look washed. Wish he was like D-Rod and took some points, but he'll probably be too disciplined. You never know. You never know. All right. Moving on. We got Karol Rosa versus Nora Cornolle. Karol Rosa, 18-7-0, 30 years old. She's going to be 5'5" with a 67.5-inch reach. On the other side, Nora Cornolle, she's 9-2-0, 35 years old. So she's 5 years older, on the older side of things. She's going to be 2 inches taller, though, and she's going to have about the exact same reach. So interesting matchup here. You have somebody in Nora Cornolle who's a good striker. She comes from a striking background. I believe that it's Muay Thai, but don't quote me. She's got solid kicks. She carries a lot of power, good leg kicks, mixes it up relatively well. The hands are good, solid combinations. She does tend to be pretty hittable at times, but overall she's a good striker, and she does struggle with grappling. I think that while that has improved a little bit in her game, I still do think that her grappling's a little bit rough and needs some work. And Karol Rosa is somebody who can shoot takedowns. Now, I know she hasn't been doing it a ton in recent fights. She used to do it a lot more back in the day, but she is a good wrestler. And I do think that she can take down Nora Cornolle. And on the feet, I think Nora's better. I think she's a better striker. The cleaner striker has more weapons and has more power. But Karol Rosa, at least she goes out there and she throws volume. If she's standing, she's throwing volume. She's putting it out there. Now, sometimes she's a little bit inconsistent, but she's normally throwing a lot of output. And I think that's going to be helpful. You know, she's not going to be as clean and technical as Nora, but she's probably going to outpace her on the feet, do a lot more, throw a lot more. And I think she can win minutes. So I lean towards Rosa winning minutes on the feet. I lean towards Cornolle winning minutes through winning damage on the feet. And then I do lean towards Karol Rosa being able to get takedowns and getting the job done. Do I want to lay the chalk on her at minus 180 when I don't quite know where she's at right now? Not really. But I don't have much interest in Cornolle either. So for now, it's going to be Rosa. Again, most of these plays, most of these picks rather, are very tentative. Again, wedding in 2 weeks. Haven't had a lot of time to tape at all between my full-time job and then dealing with that kind of stuff. Just don't have a lot of time to tape right now, but we're almost there, and then I'll be back as usual. But for now, a lot of these fights I haven't been able to really break down fully. So when I put out my shorts, that's going to be after I fully finish taping. Again, those are only 1 minute long, so I'll try to get as much info in there as I can. But again, the only real way to get my notes and my breakdowns and my bets, that's going to be at the House of Stims Discord right here. And I got this fire hat to show off this week too. Let's see what we got in the chat, and then we'll move on to this one. Drinking no things on Cornolle plus 156 small. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play a side, you probably want the one who's going to inflict damage, right? Zulema, what's up, brother? Keep it up. Thanks for the live. Thank you for watching. That's why I do it, because you guys watch. What do you think of Rebecca Taira minus 108? It is very funny that you asked me that, because when the Taira Park fight dropped, I almost went back to my old ways and I almost parlayed Taira because I saw him at minus 250 on DK. I almost parlayed him with Rebecca and just called it a day. But then I was like, no, we have a rule this year. No pre-tape bets, unless it's like really something nuts. No pre-tape bets. And then I taped it, and I'm really glad that I did. But we're going to talk about that when we get there. So for this fight, we have Esteban Ribovic versus Elvis Brenner. Ribovic, he's going to be 14-2-0. He's 29 years old, 5'10" with a 69-inch reach. Elvis Brenner, 16-5-0. He's going to be 27, so he's 2 years younger. He's going to be the same height, and he's actually going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here. I think this line's all kinds of wrong. Like, I understand making Ribovic a slight favorite because he is going to be the guy who's throwing hundreds and hundreds of strikes. He is going to be the guy landing 150 plus significant strikes. He is going to be the guy constantly putting his opponents on the back foot and putting the pressure. And those are guys that I love to back. I love backing guys like that who will bring the pace, bring the pressure, break their opponents. But I need better lines for that kind of thing. Or their opponent has to have really bad cardio. You know, if I'm going to back Ribovic at minus 285 because I think that he's got the pace edge and the output edge, and that'll get it done, I need his opponent to have bad cardio. Because if they don't, I don't necessarily think that's enough to justify that price. And Ribovic, while he's good, he's a good striker, I don't think that he has the success that he does on the feet because he's super technical, because he's not. Like, he'll put together solid enough 1-2s, jabs. He'll work it well, but he's not like some amazing technical striker. It's just he makes up for it by just throwing a ton of volume and being in your face, relentlessly backing you up. The thing here is, though, first of all, Brenner, I think, can be competitive on the feet. I don't know that Brenner can throw as much volume. He hasn't really shown that. But I think that Brenner in his own right is a solid striker too. He's pretty hittable, but so is Ribovic. Both of them are hittable. And I consider Brenner pretty durable. Getting finished by Yoel Alvarez, doesn't mean a ton to me. Yoel Alvarez is just an absolute unit for the division, and he is really, really good. And if we're being real with ourselves, Brenner's 2 losses in the UFC, Miktabek Orolbai, who Brenner was actually able to grapple with and take down and scramble with, and Yoel Alvarez, they would both run through Ribovic, in my opinion, because Ribovic has always struggled with grappling. It's something he's been working on in his youth at 29. Like, he can 100% keep getting better there, 1,000,000%. He's at Kill Cliff. He's at a great camp. I love Kill Cliff. It's one of my favorite gyms, but he hasn't really been tested there in a while either, right? He had the Akbaras fight, not a lot of wrestling there, 2 strikers. Zelubur, striker. Terrence McKinney just knocked the hell out before Terrence could get anything going. And then the Kirk fight was competitive. I was on Kirk there, and that was a competitive fight. What would Elvis Brenner do to Kirk? You know, I just think that, and then before that, Ribovic had that loss against Yoick, right? Yeah, Yoick just took him down 1,000,000 times, but Ribovic did have good success on the feet there. But I think that Brenner can find grappling success here. And I think that what's going to really help him get there is that he's not going to just grapple. He'll also throw hands, and he also has power, and he also has good kicks, and he's got a wide arsenal of strikes. And being able to do that and also mix in the wrestling, that's going to give you a lot more success than if you're only trying to wrestle and you don't have the hands to set it up with. The way I kind of see this going is Ribovic right away, forward pressure, throwing nonstop volume. Brenner falling a little bit behind on the output, but able to land nice counters, good shots, but starts to use those hands to mix in some takedowns. He gets the takedowns, maybe takes a back here and there, doesn't get a ton of control time because Ribovic is able to work back up to his feet pretty well. And Brenner's just gonna have to keep chain wrestling. I think it's something he can do. I think it's something he does have the cardio to do. And I think that compared to his past 2 opponents, this is a step down. So long story short, I see this as a 55-45 fight, and that is not how this line is indicating whatsoever. So I think that it's completely dogger pass here. I think Brenner is the side if you're going to talk about, where the value is. And you know what? I'm going to pick him to win outright. Screw it. I'm going to do it because I want to. Let's see what else we got on this in the chat. Drinking no thanks, talking about the Ribovic-Brenner fight. Feels like too high variance. Yeah, that's why when I have a fight that's I believe has high variance and is highly volatile, but I'm getting a dog who I think is a good fighter at a big plus money number, that's a spot I'll target, Brenner didn't push any pace last fight and looked mentally shot. Dude, it was Yoel Alvarez, though. Like, he's hard. He's hard to deal with. And I don't see that same threat from Ribovic, personally. Oh, no, Aussie Fight Fan. I don't want to throw that out on here just because, I don't know how public you want to make that. I mean, you did put it in a live chat. But, wow, I really hope that you're okay, man, and I hope you get better. I'll throw a prayer in for you later today. But, all right. Really feel better, Aussie Fight Fan. But okay, we got Chris Duncan versus Mateusz Rebecki. Duncan, 13-2-0. He's 32 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. Rebecki, 22-0. He's 32. He's 5'7", so he's 3 inches shorter, and he's going to have a 5-inch reach disadvantage. I think Rebecki's going to spark him. I do. And I'm old enough to remember when everybody was super low on Duncan. It wasn't long ago. He was a huge underdog to Vucenic. He was an underdog to Oki. And I get it. Oki was winning that fight until he wasn't. I can already hear Dogfather steaming, turning red when I say that. But I'm old enough to remember that most people can't stand this dude and don't like to bet on him and often bet against him. And now, he's still the underdog, but he's a lot closer than I would align this fight, or what I would have expected this fight to be lined had he not had that Vucenic fight or had he not won that Vucenic fight. I think we'd be considering a completely different line here. So I feel like we're getting a little bit of a discount in Rebecki. Rebecki's a guy who, in my opinion, has a better win on his record than Duncan does in the UFC. I think I rate an Orolbai win higher than I do rate a Vucenic win. I think Vucenic is talented, and I think he has a future, although I think they cut him. But I think Rebecki's a level or maybe even 2 levels above Vucenic, and I think he brings some things that Vucenic also doesn't have, right? Is Rebecki the best striker in the world? No, but he does strike. He's got solid enough boxing, and he does hit really hard, especially with the overhands, and he sets them up pretty well. He knows what he's doing. He's got a competent enough jab. And the problem with Duncan is he's probably one of the most hittable fighters in all of the UFC. What's his striking defense stats? Can't possibly be good. Yeah, 47%. And then you got to have a guy in Rebecki who hits really, really hard. He's got plenty of knockdowns in the UFC. I just tend to think that, again, I can't game out what a Chris Duncan win looks like here. I don't think he's taking down Rebecki. I don't think he's out grappling Rebecki. I think Rebecki can take him down pretty easily. I think Rebecki can outstrike him, and I think Rebecki can knock him out and cause a lot of damage because that damage shows on Duncan, and Rebecki hits hard. So I really do. I really do think Rebecki's going to get it done. I do. I think that he's fine at this number. I expected it to be wider. I'm going to lean towards. I lean towards some kind of finish. I just don't know if it's going to be submission or knockout that I'm leaning towards. I do want to look at the numbers. Let's see. Yeah, if I remember correctly, Rebecki hasn't gotten a sub in a while, but let's see. So fight goes is plus 170. I agree with that line. I think we'll probably get a Rebecki finish. Now, is it a sub or KO? I feel like I lean towards KO. Just because I just think that Duncan is a little chinny and his defense is awful. So I got to lean towards the knockout for Rebecki, but I could see a sub too, and I know those numbers are a bit nicer. Duncan reminds me of Landwehr, gets hurt every fight. For real, for real. But, man, I had Landwehr in that last fight, and he was what? He was like plus 2 something, right? And it was such a classic fight. Loses the first round, brings the heat in the second, goes into the third minus 600, and then just gets sparked. That sucked. Vucenic being a natural 145er probably was a big factor there. I agree with you, but am I wrong? Wasn't Duncan also a 145er at one point? Or am I totally off there? Let me double check that. No, yeah, I'm off. He's a 155er. I don't know why I thought he was a 145er. Couch is they call us because oh my god. Oh. Yeah, I really hope you're okay, Aussie. I really, really hope so. Duncan Wynn is doing cage push clinch failed takedown stuff, which yeah, but can you really see Duncan holding up Rebecki against the clinch? I feel like Rebecki's way stronger than him, you know? And his takedown defense not great. Betting Duncan so I can buy some of his cool t-shirts. Duncan, a Scottish dog, and a big boy. Awkward, sure, but gets better every fight. Yeah, and I mean, hey, all the credit to him. I backed him before, and I like the guy. I backed him against Oki. I backed him, I think, in the past. I just don't remember over who. I think he's a good fighter. I do. KO1 for Rebecki. Probably. If he KOs him, I lean towards it being early. Same with the sub, really. Rebecki always gasses, even against Nick Fiore. Duncan probably live to win round 3 if he makes it there. Same high clip. Fair enough, but I don't really think that Rebecki gasses enough to get finished, personally. And I don't really see Duncan finishing him in the third. So if I'm pretty confident he's banking the first 2 and he's live to get the finish, I still lean towards him. And there we go. All right. We'll go Rebecki. We'll go Rebecki TKO. And I'll give Duncan a round to survive, and then Rebecki too. The books think it goes to a decision, which is interesting. Kind of disagree. Wait, no, they don't. Fight goes is plus 170 on Bet Online. Dude, that was my fight of the year. When I did my end of year show where I talked about my favorite fights and everything of the year and gave my Couch Warrior awards, I did pick that one for the fight of the year because that was a banger. And I had Rebecki there at big plus money, so some bias in that pick too. Okay, we got our main event of the evening. We've got Tatsuro Taira versus Youngsung Park. Taira, 16-1-0, 25 years old. He's going to be 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Park on the other side, 10-0, undefeated. He's 29, so he's 4 years older. He's going to be the same height, though, and he is going to be at a 4-inch reach disadvantage. So, as I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, when I'm forgetting who it was, asked me about the Rebecca Taira parlay. Like I said, when this fight got announced, and this morning I went and I saw on DK that Taira was minus 250. And in my head, I remember them both well. I was thinking, Taira's probably the more well-rounded fighter, has more tools, is better grappler, has had 5-round experience despite slowing down and losing in that fight. Whereas Park has not had that experience. And he's the one who's not on short notice and was training for a pretty good fighter in Amir Albazi. But thank God I taped first, because I kind of came out the other way. Like, don't get me wrong. Taira's the rightful favorite. When I ultimately make this click, it's going to be for Taira. I think he probably wins this fight more often than not. I think he's a really, really talented fighter. I think he's a guy who's still a little bit green at 25, but he has a lot of fights under his belt. He's paying his dues, as my guy Dan Levy would say. And, he did lose that Royval fight, but he had a decent showing there. It was his first main event. It was a really big step up in competition, and he gave his best effort, and he had his moments. He won some rounds, and Royval is a really tough dude, and he's a guy who will push a pace. So I got to give him some slack there. But anyway, looking at the matchup, right? Like I started with looking at Park, and he's good, man. I just feel like this line is kind of like, I know that a lot of things are baked into the line, right? The fact that Taira had the 5-rounder and Park has not, that's definitely baked into the line. The fact that Taira was the one who had a 5-rounder already booked and Park did not and is on short notice and was supposed to fight Ursig in a 3-rounder, that as well. But damn, I'm so tired again. I forgot where I was going. But regardless, I think that in Park, you have a guy who he's improving like a lot fight to fight. You go back to his fight against Choi. It was the finals for the road to UFC, and Choi was having his moments. And Choi is a guy who kind of doesn't do a lot. He's not a bad fighter. He's mostly a grappler who didn't really grapple there, or he tried, but Park seems to be hard to grapple. And it wasn't the best look, until Park got that finish. It was a very competitive fight. I believe it was 1-1 going into the third, and it could have gone anybody's way, but he did get the finish. But since then, I know the competition he's doing it against is very low, like very low level, right? Shannon Ross, God bless his soul, not a great fighter. Honestly, here's the thing with Shannon Ross. Shannon Ross actually isn't that bad. Like, skill-wise, he's not bad. He's a decent counter grappler. He's a solid striker. It's just he has no chin. He has no chin, and he just can't take shots. So while on one hand, yeah, it's not the best win in the world, but Park took care of him, and he did it nice. The way he was working him, like those body shots, it was such clean work. And it's just striking that you didn't see in prior fights, which is why I'm saying he's a guy who's improving fight to fight. And the way he mixes it up, like he has such a wide arsenal of strikes. He has so many weapons on the feet. He's got all different strikes with the hands. He's putting together really nice combinations upstairs. And then he mixes in the elbows, the knees, even outside the clinch. In the clinch, he has good elbows and knees. But even outside of the clinch, he's throwing his combinations, and then he'll lock up and just throw an elbow. Or he'll throw a step-in knee to the body. And then he'll throw more with the hands. And the combinations are just so nice. And if that's, if it's already that much of a difference. So when did Choi happen? Choi happened 2.5 years ago, right? So then this happens, 8 months later? Something like that. And already his striking looks leaps and bounds. And then against Carlos Hernandez, he looked really good. I know Carlos Hernandez, I wouldn't say he's the lowest level fighter in the flyweight division. He's a competent fighter that will beat guys who don't belong in the UFC, but Park just dispatched him. I know that they both took care of business against him. Taira knocked him out. I believe that was his first ever knockout loss for Carlos Hernandez, but Park, he didn't even get like a full takedown. He just body lock, lift, bring him to the ground, throw in the hooks, and got the rear naked. So when I'm looking at this fight, I'm thinking to myself, okay, aside from everything I said before, narrative or just, the 5-round experience for Taira, he has fought the better competition. He's not on short notice. Aside from that, I think they're really well matched. On the feet, I like Park striking better. Taira will have more of a reach advantage, and he can throw long and rangy, but he also doesn't really have the game where he's maintaining that range, right? Like when he is at range, when it just happens, yeah, he'll use it. He'll throw long, straight shots. But he's not really a guy who can keep people away from him all the time. He can struggle with that a little bit. And Park is a guy who likes to be on the front foot. He likes to move forward. And I think he's just going to be letting it rip with all those combinations and all those different weapons and tools that he's got in his toolbox. So I lean towards Park on the feet. And I also think Park might hit harder out of the two of them. And Taira, he's a durable dude. He's taken a lot of shots. But him getting dropped by Shirez that way, I don't see a reason that Park can't do that. I rate Park higher than Shirez. I do. I think Park is a really talented mixed martial artist, and he's a prospect a lot of people don't talk about because he's kind of just like a road to UFC guy. This doesn't really stand out, but he's good. I think he's really good. So then it comes down to the grappling, right? Who's going to have more success? Well, I tend to lean towards Taira. I rate Taira's wrestling pretty highly. I rate Taira's ground game pretty highly. I would say his control is good. His ground and pound is great. His submissions are really, really slick. He's fast on the ground. The transitions from position to position are really nice on the mat. And then there's just a big question mark with Park because from what I've seen, his takedown defense looks good. He reacts very quickly. Does all of the right things, fighting hand control, underhooks, using those hips, does all the right stuff. I just haven't seen him tested there that much. That's another reason why I'm still going to pick Taira, why I think he probably is the rightful favorite. But at the same time, because we don't have that information, we don't have a ton of it, it's possible that his takedown defense is just as good as it seemed in those small moments and that he can keep this on the feet. And if he does get taken down, which I lean towards him getting taken down at least a couple times in this fight, I think he's got the jiu-jitsu to be able to defend and stay safe. And, would I be shocked if he came out there and took out Taira? Because who was the last one who really tried? I think that Taira probably does have good takedown defense, but I wouldn't be shocked if Park mixed in a takedown here and there and actually landed it. Now, can he hold down Taira? Because I think that Taira's a good scrambler. I don't really think he can. But I just wouldn't put it out of question that he can land a couple takedowns of his own. And I do lean towards him being able to survive on the ground. So another big question for me with Park is, does he have the cardio for 5 rounds? I don't know. And I have no way to know because he's never done 5 rounds. I haven't really seen him gas all that much, although he did slow down a little bit against Choi. But he did get the finish in the 3rd round against Choi. So, yeah. Like I said, at the end of the day, I think that Taira's the rightful favorite. I'm going to lean towards a decision for him. But I kind of think Park knocking out Taira wouldn't be an insane outcome. And I think that Park getting a decision wouldn't be an insane outcome either. I think it's entirely possible that he does have the cardio to do it. So, yeah, it's dog or pass for me here all day long. Like a complete and utter dog or pass. Definitely not betting Taira at this number. I just don't want to when I think that he's got a tough matchup here against a good prospect in his own right. I think that Taira probably has a higher ceiling. But we also think that way because we have more information about him. He has more UFC fights. With Park, we just don't know, but his ceiling seems relatively high, and he's also only 29 years old. What's up, my brother? Good to see you in here. What do you think about the over? Honestly, think finish on feet more live than on the ground. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you there in that I think that Park's counter grappling and defensive jiu-jitsu abilities are going to hold up. So I lean towards overs. But the one thing holding me back is that I kind of think Park can knock him out. And I feel like that's not being talked about at all because I guess it's hard to imagine. But I can kind of see it. Park been dropped a lot. But let's not forget that. I was just watching his tape today. Who dropped him? Again, I'm very tired these days with everything going on, but Oh, Kiram? Oh, and Choi. True. Well, the Choi fight, like I said, that wasn't a great look. But my point is, I just think he's improved a lot since those fights. And also, Top Noah Kiram is a man. That's one of my favorite fighters who never made it to the UFC. That dude is so funny. He's literally smoking bogeys before going out there. He's a Muay Thai fighter. He's the man. And Park did dispatch him at the end of the day. But yeah, it's dog or pass for me here. Totally understand Taira being a favorite. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. I do lean towards him getting it done more often than not. But I think the line's a little bit disrespectful towards Park. That's all. That's it, guys. That's UFC Vegas 108. Like I said, a lot of these fights, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I didn't have a lot of time to tape, so I haven't been able to give you as in-depth of a breakdown as I could. But the ones that I really did look into, I think we spent some time on them. It was this fight. I really looked into the Brenner Ribovich fight, and I really looked into the Rebecca Duncan fight. So those are the three that I really, really looked into. The rest, I've been doing my best. So once I get that done fully, I'll release my shorts. We're probably talking about Thursday, maybe Friday, but I'd like to get it out by Thursday. And again, if you want my bets, my notes, and my breakdowns, the only place to find it is here, House of Stims. Make sure you check out the link is in the description of this video. And again, if you have any trouble signing up, just hit me up, DM me anywhere, and I'll help you get signed up. As I go through the picks one more time, like we always do, please, I see 743 of you watching. Those of you on Twitter, come on, throw me some likes. Give me a surprise. You know, I'm expecting maybe 5 likes, 7 likes. Give me like 50. There's 700 of you. Throw like 50 in there. That'll be cool. Maybe like 5 retweets, 10 retweets, maybe 3 comments. I usually get no comments on the Twitter streams, but do your boy a favor and help me out a little bit with the algorithm. All right, we're going Bashi. Have done 0 tape because it just got announced and I had 2 minutes before the show to kind of look at Yannis. We're going to go Piera, but dog or pass in my opinion. Again, pending more tape. Estevam, Vieira, pending more tape. Nakamura, Pulayev probably, but I don't really want to bet it. Vallejos, ZDS, but dog or pass, and I got to tape it more. Rosa, but got to tape it more. We're going Brenner, we're going Rebecca, and we're going Taira, but major dog or pass. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys as always, and I love talking to you guys in the chat. It makes it way more fun than when I just sit here and talk to myself. It's way more fun. And you guys help me think of things that I wouldn't have thought of on my own. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. Good luck this weekend. Let's make some money.